What is up, guys? Welcome to my review of the new motorcycle club drama called The Bikeriders. Now, this is a film that was actually supposed to release last year, and it was one of my more anticipated films of the later part of last year, but it got pushed forward to this summer, and now I finally had the chance to see it. Now, ever since I saw the first trailer and heard this thing announced, I've been very intrigued by it. Motorcycle drama. I assumed there was going to be some crime involved, being that they were a motorcycle gang. You got Tom Hardy, you got Austin Butler. There wasn't a whole lot more you had to do to sell me on this thing. I was a huge fan of Sons of Anarchy. I really like period piece crime thrillers, especially when it deals with gangs, whether you're talking about Greasers or, The Outsiders, whatever it is. This should absolutely be my type of film. And what this movie is an adaptation of a book that is an actual story of the rise of this motorcycle gang in the late 60s into the early 70s. A guy was essentially just following them around, taking pictures and taking notes, and then released a whole novel detailing everything about this club. And so that's what the movie is. You've got Tom Hardy is the leader, the originator of this motorcycle gang. You've got Austin Butler as kind of the rebel without a cause character. Jodie Comer is the reluctant wife of Austin Butler's character, and it's detailing the rise and somewhat fall of this motorcycle gang. And I was also intrigued because this is directed by Jeff Nichols, who I have not seen all of his films. Midnight Special is one that a lot of people seem to love that didn't do a ton for me, but I absolutely love Mud. And so if this movie was even almost as good as Mud, it was going to inevitably be one of my favorite films of the year. But unfortunately, now that I've seen it, The Bikeriders is likely to be on my list of most disappointing films of 2024. There's so many things that I expected from this movie walking into it, and it delivered very few of them. But really quick before we dive into the good, bad, and ugly of The Bikeriders, even if you're in a tough-as-nails motorcycle gang, you are never too old or too tough to enjoy some childhood favorites that actually fit the lifestyle of a tough-as-nails adult. So check out the sponsor of today's video, Magic Spoon. When I was growing up, a delicious bowl of cereal was practically a requirement for starting my day. And now as an adult, I try to watch my sugar intake as well as the amount of carbs that I eat. And let me tell you, it is a cold, depressing day when you realize that your childhood favorites no longer fit your lifestyle. Well, with Magic Spoon, I'm able to enjoy all of my childhood favorites once again. Magic Spoon is a wholesome, high-protein cereal that has 0 sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 to 5 net carbs per serving. And it comes in a wide variety of your favorite flavors, such as cocoa, peanut butter, and fruity, even a few wilder flavors like cinnamon roll, maple waffle, and birthday cake. You can even be bold like me and mix some of your favorites together for a chocolate peanut butter delight. All that plus a Saturday morning cartoon-inspired design, and I'm transported back to the 90s with every bowl. And if you want that delicious nostalgia on the go, they also have Magic Spoon treats that have 1 gram of sugar, 11 to 12 grams of protein, and only 1 to 2 net carbs per serving. So if you're ready to enjoy some of your childhood favorites without that extra guilt, click the link below to get some Magic Spoon cereal today. You can build your very own custom box with all the flavors that you love and use my code CLEACH for $5 off. You can choose from any of the flavors that I've already showed, plus some other favorites like Frosted, Honey Nut, Blueberry Muffin, and Chocolate Chip Cookie. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product that it's all backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan the QR code and use the code CLEACH for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/CLEACH to save $5 off of your order today. And for my Canadian and British fans, Magic Spoon also ships to Canada and the UK. And thank you so much to Magic Spoon for sponsoring today's video. Starting off with the positives, I do think Jeff Nichols does a good job at directing this film and formulating the story, adapting it from a book, and telling it in a way where you get a lot of different events over a long period of time that are scattered, yet it all feels cohesive. You don't feel like we get these giant time jumps where we're wondering what the hell happened, or we feel like we're missing out on some integral part of the story, which is also the most difficult part of adapting any kind of novel or any kind of autobiography, is trying to figure out what is integral to tell this in a visual medium and what can be left out without feeling like you're compromising the story. Performances across the board are all really good, from the main characters all the way to the side characters. Of course, when you've got Tom Hardy in a movie, you you expect a certain amount of excellence, and he's very good here as the leader of this motorcycle club. You've got Austin Butler. I believe this was like the first thing he did after Elvis, even though we're seeing it after Dune, and he does another really good performance. He's just one of those new up-and-coming actors that is starting to build a really nice little filmography for himself, and I'm very curious to see what he does after this. And then you got Jodie Comer in here as probably one of the more notable performances, because she is kind of the innocent person within this story that we are seeing it all through. She is kind of our catalyst for experience in this story. She's narrating a lot of it. She is the person that's kind of navigating the morals of everything. So she does a really good job at being that hesitant wife that is intoxicated by this life and knows she needs to get out of it, needs to get her husband out of it. There's also a lot of really good performances from side characters here. Boyd Holbrook is kind of the mechanic of the group, and he's really entertaining. You've got a damn near unrecognizable Norman Reedus in here, and he was probably the character that I enjoyed seeing the most, just because he was so wildly different than what I'm used to seeing from him as an actor. So the whole cast, really, from top to bottom, does a really good job with what they're given. I also really enjoyed the soundtrack. Anytime you do a period piece, especially when you're going back to the 60s or the 70s and even the 80s a lot of times, even though there's a bit of an overplayed section of 80s soundtracks. 60s and 70s, you have a wide array of music to choose from, and I think they do a good job at having a soundtrack here that really captures the vibe of that era, has different genres of music without feeling like it's just a collection of the most overplayed and overused soundtrack songs. Moving on to the mixed, while I really liked their performances, there was something in regards to the dialect and the accents that a couple of characters chose to use that I was a little off on. Like, Tom Hardy seems to always try to pick some new distinct voice to give to his characters to, I guess, make his character stand out from the other things that he has done. And there was two things that were off about it. First of all, I just thought the voice was unnecessary. I don't think every character needs to have this quirky Tom Hardy voice creation. And also, it didn't really feel like the movie committed to it, because it was pretty heavy in the first half, and then the second half of the film, his character just kind of felt like regular Tom Hardy voice, which I much preferred. So that was a little bit odd. And also you have Jodie Comer's character here that has an incredibly thick accent. It's like a mix between New York, East Coast, with like a little bit of an Illinois draw, and it is so heavy, it is so thick, and it's so prevalent throughout the film because she is narrating a lot of it that it started to grate on my nerves very quickly. Like, I liked her character, and it's not thick all the time, but the moments where she really leans into that, it felt like it was overdone a bit, and just, I wanted her to stop talking. I'm like, stop narrating, just show me what's happening, please. And now moving on to the negatives, of which there's really just two very big issues with this film. The first one, while you have very good performances from everybody, the characters across the board are all pretty paper thin. They're all pretty much embodied with one characteristic, and we don't really get to see a whole lot of change or growth from any of them throughout these multiple years of events. You've got Austin Butler here as the rebel without a cause character, and his entire personality is just don't give a fuck. Don't care. Don't care about the rules. Don't care about etiquette. Don't really care about the wife. Don't really care about the club. I'm a rebel. You know, I don't really have anything to live for. I just kind of do my own thing. I just kind of exist. Which is intriguing enough if you're going to have like a rough around the edges character at first, but when you're putting him in the situation that this movie does, and you're putting him through all these things, and you're having a wife pulling in one direction, having a club and a president pulling in the other direction, and all the way to the end of the film, it just kind of feels like he's the same character. It's not the most interesting arc, and it's not the most interesting person to spend a lot of runtime with. And even Tom Hardy's character, there's a tiny bit of a change with him, where at first he just kind of seems very naive and just kind of wants to have fun and get the motorcycle people together and just kind of have a little bit of a social club. And then as things start to progress, he gets a little more hardened and a little more crazy and a little more willing to do some dark shit for the club. But it's not this gigantic growth. It's just kind of a little bit of a minute change. And all throughout the film, his personality kind of remains the same as well, where he's just the leader. He's just the tough guy that makes the decisions. And I don't know, maybe it's because it's Tom Hardy that a lot of us just expect his character to pop off the screen a bit more, because he has delivered such huge, larger-than-life characters before. And so when he does something that's a little bit more subtle, a little more mundane like this, it feels like the character's a bit thin, but I don't know, there's just something I wanted more out of his character, especially with the amount that we're supposed to invest emotionally in his rise and fall. He just never really delivered a whole lot that drew me in.
I don't want any trouble here.
Then I'll let you leave. What about the bar? Burn it down.
And even Jodie Comer's character, she's probably the one that is the most interesting to follow. She kind of has the most change, but her character just confused the fuck out of me the entire film, where she's this obviously very innocent person that knows better, that suddenly gets intoxicated with Butler and with this motorcycle gang and like the culture of all of that. But all throughout the film, like, she's the wife that's trying to pull the husband out of the dark life. And it's just like, why are you here? Why were you there in the first place? Why are you still here when you're seeing all this stuff start to go bad? And even by the end of the film, it's like, why are you still involved with all of this? So as much as I wanted to like her character and I wanted to sympathize with her character, all throughout it, I'm just like, why? Why do you exist in this story? But ultimately, the largest issue with this movie for me is that I just didn't find the story to be really that exciting. This is something that is not really advertised as being this, at least I didn't know it was, but by the end of the film, it kind of reveals itself to be a story of how motorcycle clubs were back in the 60s before all of the crime started to happen and all the gangs started to take over, and then motorcycle clubs just become synonymous with criminal enterprises. So this is a movie that is taking place before all of the shit that I kind of wanted to see. And I'll take blame for part of that. Part of that's just my expectations. I walked in expecting this to be a more crime-focused drama, thriller type movie, and it's not that whatsoever. But even if I walked in expecting what this movie is, I just don't find it to be all that interesting and certainly not that exciting. When you don't have a motorcycle gang doing gang shit, it's basically just a bunch of bikers hanging out and partying and doing bonfires and hanging out at the club and letting new people come in and telling other people to get the fuck out. And those are the type of events that we go through for the majority of this runtime. And I just didn't find much of it very interesting.
Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. It's over.
It's basically just you hanging out in a subculture and experiencing that world for 2 hours, which for some people might be very interesting. For me, I just wanted to see the more exciting, the darker side of this world, not just bunch of dudes chilling. And unfortunately, it's the type of movie where even the few amount of darker directions that it does have in store for you, you see them coming from Act 1. Like, you just know everything that's about to happen in this film because it's just such a tried and true story of the rise and basically the fall of some kind of a criminal organization. I mean, this movie is very much trying to be Goodfellas. Like, the Goodfellas style is all throughout this film, and Goodfellas is a great example of a classic movie like that, where you see the rise and the fall and the bad decisions that lead to things and people losing everything. Like, you just see all of that happening from a mile away. So even the bit of surprise that we're supposed to have in store for us in the third act about how certain events transpire and the fate of certain characters, you're not really all that affected by it because you just know it's coming. And even if this is, for some reason, the first gang movie that you've ever seen in your life, the first crime movie you've ever seen, and you don't have any of those points of references like Goodfellas, the movie telegraphs everything that's about to happen, either through Jodie Comer's narration or by giving you very fucking direct hints about where things are going to go. I mean, when you have a character where the entire runtime of the film, we have not seen them interact with their family at all, and now suddenly in the third act, we see them have a quick little dialogue exchange with the wife that we've never met. And she's like, "Hey, you heading out?" "Yeah, gonna go meet up with the boys." "Cool, you coming back?" "Yeah, I'm coming back." "All right, cool. Well, on your way back, bring some eggs home for breakfast in the morning." "That motherfucker ain't coming back. Breakfast is canceled, bitch." And it really didn't help matters that this is a movie that you are very impatiently waiting to kick into high gear, to get a little bit more fast-paced, to get a little more intense. And there's about 3, maybe even 4 different points throughout the story where it feels like it's about to happen, and then it doesn't. Or a character comes in, and you're like, "Ooh, something's about to happen. This guy's gonna put some chaos into the groups. This is where it gets crazy." and then it doesn't. Or somebody says a line of dialogue that's very, impending doom, it's very foreboding, and you're like, oh shit, it's about to pop off finally, and then nothing happens.
How long is this going to take?
And after like the third time, you're just like, fucking hell, man. I haven't had my dick teased this much since Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. What are you doing? Now, this is a true story. It's not like they could have taken liberties. It's not like they could have done things with the story or with character fates to change up what happens to make a more interesting film, because then you're being untrue to what actually happened. But I just don't think the true story they're adapting here is really all that interesting. It's certainly not exciting. So all in all, guys, this is one that disappointed me quite a bit. I'm sure there's going to be some people that are just going to appreciate it for the performances and for the filmmaking and aren't really going to be all that worried about excitement or crazy crime-ridden turn of events. But for me, that is 100% what I walked into this movie hoping for and expecting, and I got really none of it. So this is not the type of film that I could see myself rewatching. It's not the type of film that I think merits you rushing out to the theater or even watching it in the theater. If you are somebody that is just really interested in this, you'll be just fine checking it out at home whenever it's released. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my 2024 new release reviews. I'm also going to put a playlist up here of all of my month wrap-ups, all the movies that I have watched ranked every single month for the year of 2024. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.